So there are these two views, the view of being and the view of non-being. And the suttas say that anyone who relies on the view of being will be opposed to the view of non-being, and anyone who relies on the view of non-being will be opposed to the view of being. Then it says, one who does not understand as it really is the origin, disappearance, gratification, danger, and escape in the case of being and non-being is affected by lust, hatred, and delusion, and dwells in suffering. So I wonder what is meant by being and non-being here, and what is the gratification, danger, and escape?
Well, in the broadest terms, being is that which is. Anything that can be discerned, perceived, thought about, anything that exists, that is what being is. So you could have like you could perceive specific things, and there is a form of being, that which you're perceiving. But then you could also start perceiving more general things, such as your experience of perception. You could discern that, and that also exists. And that is also a form of being. So being is not like a static, scientifically measured thing on the basis of your senses. It's anything that can be mentally discerned as is, including mentality as well. So if there is a sense of, doesn't matter how vague or how abstract it might feel, it's real as such. That's I often say. And the reality of that, say, abstract thought of being that somebody might have in the beginning, that reality of that experience of thinking abstract thoughts of being is real as such, and that is already a form of being. That is already a form of existence. So when the Buddha talks about a being, he doesn't talk about specific instances or manifestations of that being. He talks about the whole nature of your experience that's already a form of being, because it exists in a certain way. The five aggregates, the experience as a whole, and so on. So fundamentally, on those most general, like fundamental levels, people will either be adhering to the being, or trying to get rid of it, trying to deny it. So, like say, for example, like you might be specifically say, I don't like this. So you might be specifically trying to get rid of that particular being, particular type of existence that you're experiencing. You want to modify it, you want to change it. But overall, you're very much still enamored and infatuated with the state of existence, with the nature of it. Broadly speaking, you are not, you are very much delighting in that, in your own existence as a whole. Like you have no issue with it. But then you could have people that basically start finding issue with that, with their sense of existence as a whole, while on a particular level, they might not be against things, but their general view, it's like they relish the non-being. They delight in the absence of it when it occurs, and so on. So in other words, either way, you're bound by that broader sense of being of your existence, like the five aggregates, the framework of your experience. So that's why, like those who fundamentally delight in their own existence, in their own isness, so to speak, in the broadest sense, they will be opposed to any idea of, oh, this will come to an end. This will expire. This could be destroyed. So basically, when that being, if that being were to change or cease, they would be opposed to that. They would not be they won't feel that pleasantly. Basically, they would feel threatened by it. And same, those who, for whatever reason, relish the idea, oh, I don't care because everything, including myself, will come to an end, and that will be the finish. So there's nothing to worry about anyway. Well, if they were told that, well, actually, that won't be the end, the being will continue, just maybe in another form, they don't relish that idea, because they find solace in freedom. Well, freedom, not really freedom, but they find solace and comfort and safety in the idea that doesn't matter how bad it is, it's going to come to an end, and ever after there will be no more problems. When the being ends, that's just complete annihilation, and it's the finishing of everything. But either way, what they don't realize, it doesn't matter how hard you think about annihilation and the absence of the being in the most general sense, that experience in of itself, it's a form of being, because it can be discerned, and it is in that way. So you're not escaping the being, doesn't matter how much you try to destroy it. So that's like the whole point, is to discern whether you're relishing, finding safety in the existence, or are looking forward for it when it ends, because you have conflated that with the idea of, oh, you'll be free ever after, there will be no more problems. Either way, you're bound with the being. So either way, basically, you're mistaken. And that the whole middle way, it's basically recognizing that whether you think existence, whether you think non-existence, that experience is real as such for you there and then, and that thing is, that experience is. Which means you won't be able to free yourself and overcome being simply through falling into a view that everything is or everything will not be. Because you're bound by being, not through simply thinking this or that, but through your constant interaction on the basis of your existence with other further kind of forms and shapes and manifestations of that existence of the five aggregates. And those interactions are always fueled by greed, lust, aversion. So for as long as you are acting out of those bases, you are maintaining your bhava, whether you want it or not, whether you want to deny it, whether you believe it will end, whether you believe it will last forever. All of those beliefs are pretty much the results of your engagement with your own sense of being through passion, through aversion, through appropriation, through acquisition, and all of that. So yes, being is a problem, because you're not, like, your own being is a problem, because like, oh, I am, but I'm not my own, I'm not in my own control. Whichever way things decide to go, my control can only prevent that only so far. There's always going to be a line where things will be out of my hands, and my existence will be at the mercy of that. So being is a problem, but then, like, whether you hold the view that, well, being is not a problem, or being is a problem, and when it ends I'll be free from the problem, you're still maintaining it, because you're still basically connected with it through your own actions and through your own ignorance. So that's that whole kind of the standard description of understanding the gratification, danger, and the escape in regard to being. In other suttas, the Buddha said in regard to sensuality, or in regard to four elements, it was the same description. In other words, it's the description that basically means discerning the middle ground. So discerning what the real problem is. The problem is not that I find safety in the being. The problem is not that I hate the being and I want it to end, or believe that that will be my freedom and then I find safety in that. The problem is that either of those views are the results of my passionate involvement with the being that I am there and then when I think those things. So then, if you address it on that level, both this kind of eternalist and annihilationist fundamental kind of standpoints, as the suttas talk about them, will disappear. You wouldn't have to be sort of counter-arguing and reasoning your way out, because you would have removed that wrongful basis, wrongful connection, wrongful relationship that you have with your own existence, a relationship of passion, ill will, distraction, and so on. And then basically being will not be anymore owned by you, assumed through your own actions of the wrong kind. So then whether that being exists, or when currently, or where it's going to end, either way you won't be affected by it, because you escaped it. And you escape it by recognizing the danger of finding safety in it. But see, that's not enough. Just, okay, so being is dangerous, therefore being free from being is better. But unless you actually start tailoring your actions accordingly to those reflections, you're just going to fall into a view of blaming the being for your problems, blaming your existence for the problems, and then thinking when the existence ends, all the problems will end. But yeah, being is a problem if you're infatuated with it. But then if you just start to deny it, you are still not changing the problem. You're still under its thumb, so to speak. So that's why it's like, okay, yeah, being infatuated with the being is bad, denying the being won't free you from that either. So what do I do? Well, that's what the Buddha recognized. Okay, so I recognize, why am I intoxicated with the being? Why am I losing perspective of my actions towards sensuality, towards this, towards that, out of passion, aversion? Oh, it's because it's like carelessness here and now. I don't see the benefit of withdrawing from it, and I don't recognize the connection between those actions and the problem of my existence. So that's the whole the Buddha's teaching, explaining that in so many ways. And then the more you start to recognize, then it becomes apparent that, oh yeah, the only reason you were engaging with it is because it was providing you with a sense of safety. Same with sensuality. Providing you a form of escape from discomfort, from uneasiness, and so on. So, but unless you first renounce that as a form of escape, you won't find the more adequate form of escape, because they're kind of the opposite directions. So you can either go left or right. You can't go left and right at the same time. So then the whole danger gratification, well, gratification means that, like, aha, I engage with this because it offers me this superficial safety that I don't look past and I'm intoxicated with it. What's the danger? Well, the danger is that it's not really safety. Someone says, come in here, this is a safe house, you're safe here. And you might feel safe initially, and then you recognize, oh no, this was a trap. Actually, in this safe house, I am at their mercy. And then you wouldn't lose a second of trying to leave that place when you recognize the true danger. So that's like knowing the danger, knowing the gratification, which then, if you fully understand, will result in finding the escape. Because the only reason people don't find escape out of their own existence, from their own existence, is because they still think they are in a place of safety. They still don't see the danger of staying there. So, like, how could they possibly find a way out when they don't even look for it?
So now, a Sotapanna understands the origin of suffering as craving for sensual pleasures and also as craving for being and non-being. So can we say that the craving for sensual pleasure is still on the level of more particular things, but the craving for being and non-being, some
It is, yes.
more general layer, he has also understood?
Yeah. Well, Sotapanna understands that craving is the root of suffering. He might not initially be understanding the implications of the layers, so to speak, of craving for sensuality, craving for being, craving for non-being. He knows that craving is an issue. That's where the suffering comes from. It doesn't come from things, it doesn't come from the absence of things, it comes from you craving for pleasure, craving away from pain, and so on. So if he then pursues his own understanding of craving as a problem, if he pursues the development of the Four Noble Truths, like the suttas talk about, then he gets to realize that, basically your starting position is the domain of sensuality. That's why Sotapanna is still not free from sensual desires. So he understood craving to be the problem, but he hasn't diminished it sufficiently enough for that domain of sensuality to kind of evaporate, to disappear. So for somebody who is not free from sensuality, there's really no craving for being or non-being that they can discern. Because any form of affirmation or resistance, eternalism or annihilationism will be well within the kama bhava, the being of sensuality. That's their domain, that's where the mind operates, that's where their craving is very much still engaged with. But say then you make the effort, not giving into that craving, contemplating the danger and so on, and that craving, by not being fed, will eventually dissipate, and then you would have lost, say, interest in the sense objects, because you recognize that the only reason you were seeking and pursuing interest in sense objects is because you believe that's where the safety was coming from. Then what's left for you will be that bhava tanha and vibhava tanha, craving for presence, craving for absence, and so on. And that's kind of the level of anagami in the suttas. Like in terms of the development towards kind of overcoming the degree of craving. Then what's left is like, anagami is somebody he still might have some internal leaning of their chitta towards the presence of a certain experiences and the absence of a certain experience. It's like, I prefer if this were, and I prefer if this weren't. But obviously, at no point will those leanings be able to become what they used to be, like a full-on blown desire towards sense objects as forms of escape from what's being pressuring you here and now.
And is this what is meant by the conceit I am?
Yeah, like that's what conceit I am would be corresponding to. Yeah, those subtler cravings that would have been left. Yeah.
And how does an anagami practice in order to abandon even that conceit and attain the complete freedom?
Same. So when he starts to recognize those subtler leanings, that factually, like from the point of view of Putujana, obviously, but even from the point of view of Sotapanna, from the point of view of like even like Sakadagami, somebody who is already weak in those things, you could factually say that those leanings are not even an issue. Like there's virtually no suffering involved. It's just almost like on the level of agreeable, disagreeable. That's why, like often in the suttas, anagamis would think they were arahants. Often the Buddha would say, when they were asked, like, oh, are all these arahants declared arahantship? Are they all arahants? He says, well, I could tell like half of them are, but half of them overestimated themselves. But they were factually like anagamis at least. And even the Buddha himself often would say, practice like this, and it will result in complete arahantship, unless there is some residues left, in which case state of non-return. Because obviously things get a lot subtler, and there might be some residues that don't even show up, so to speak. But the practice remains the same. So for an anagami, like he just needs to recognize that there could be residual implications of these mental leanings. And he doesn't need to, oh, I must stop this. No, he just needs to regain the same context that brought him there. In other words, start including those little preferential kind of almost automatic leaning away, leaning towards that do not induce any measure of craving, but he includes even that as a possible basis for craving, so he contemplates the same. Gratification, danger, that then results in not even losing perspective in regard to those subtler things, and that's where there will be no conceit left. So same kind of practice, just like on account of little faith, so to speak, an anagami can then just out of faith even start including things that do not, as I said, are not problem by any measure, by any kind of comparison to craving, but just in case, he would still practice the same context, maintenance, recollection of the same context, contemplating of the danger, because again, he has nothing to lose by doing that. He can only gain. And if he's already an arahant, well, again, he's just confirming what he already is. He's just aligning what his existence already is.